Steve, thank you very much. Since its launch in 2002, the index has been used by over 350 companies, and together they've submitted 1,317 individual submissions over that 10-year period. You all know that it's backed by the most comprehensive set of CR guidance notes when you come to do it, and this is the point in the year when business in the community measures what excellent is. Now, just in that opening, I've put 3 data points in front of you. So there are going to be lots of numbers in this presentation, and I am going to take it carefully. And I always say it's a bit like being at the dentist. It hurts much less if you just sit back and relax and don't fight the flow of information. So I've got 2 sections of my presentation today. First is to look at the results, and the second is to look at developments. So I'll move to the results, and the results is all about who's taken part, how they've done, what the 10-year trends have been, and what the emerging issues are. So this year, a total of 127 companies have taken part in the index, and that comprises 110 public participants, the people you'll see on the list, and 17 private benchmarks. 56% of the companies are reporting on their global operations. 17% of the index participants this year are new, and 45% of them are in the FTSE 350. We've got 30 companies who've moved up a band and 66 who've kept to the same band. And I'm just going to pick out a few. So most improved this year, the Clancy Group, Veolia, and Vocalink. And our highest new entrants are AES Seal, Dairy Crest, and Gen2. So we've already got some high performances we'd like to highlight there. I'd also like to make a mention about our Platinum Plus companies. And not only do they score very highly in the CR index, but they've each submitted to essentially a viva, where they get cross-examined. And what we're looking for is the extent to which their business strategy is underpinned by their commitment to long-run sustainability. And I'm just going to highlight a few that will flash on and off now. And of these Platinum Plus companies, they've been doing the index since its very start. So they've done it for 10 years. Now, many of you will be familiar with our index model, so I'm just going to recap it, starting with corporate strategy. The key elements we look for in the corporate strategy section, it's all about risks and opportunities, and in particular, whether there are responsibilities held at a very senior board level in a company. Integration is about how a company organizes, manages, and embeds its CR. And then we go on to look at management, and we split management into risks and opportunities in the area of community, environment, marketplace, and workplace. Finally, and for me personally, the most important area is, of course, performance impact, because that's what the proceeding are all about. And we ask participants to complete 3 environmental and 3 social impact areas. This year's score at 89% is actually the highest ever, and you can see that we've had a long run of very good scores. And these fairly high averages for us suggest that businesses are doing very well at integrating responsible business practice across their operations. Now I'm going to work through this slide a little bit slowly because it's the key of the index scores for this year. And starting with corporate strategy, companies across the sectors have performed very well in this. We can see that responsibility is held at board level, that policies have been developed and they are available publicly, and that many companies have incorporated CR into their risk evaluation processes. And you can see that in a very good score. It's the highest scoring sector. Turning to integration, whilst the integration of CR has come a very long way, there are still gaps. And one of the gaps we see most often is the extent to which CR metrics are included in board and senior management performance appraisals. All boards and companies in the index are reporting on social and environmental issues. However, there were still some issues about the scope and the quality of these reports. And quite significantly, only 53% of companies have third-party assurance data for all of their reports. Management, I'm just going to pick out and say that the recurring theme for quite a while has been that the marketplace is the most challenging area that we see the weakest scores in. And environment, backed by a much kind of stronger practitioner background in this area, gets the highest scores. As I said on the previous slide, impact is the ultimate aim, and all companies are asked to complete in the environment, climate change and waste management, and most companies also move to look at water use as well. The top social areas are employee development and corporate wellness, and we see in that a strong desire in companies to retain and develop their talent. Let's turn now to look at some of the trends over 10 years of benchmarking. And we have seen some very substantial changes. In 2002, corporate responsibility appeared to us just to be an add-on, and we found it very difficult to find really good examples of integrated responsible business practice in the submissions that we got in 2002. But a lot's changed since then. And just to pick on 3 examples from this year. Unilever have combined sustainability and business strategy very clearly. Marks & Spencer's are reporting £50 million worth of savings from Plan A. And the cooperative group aims to differentiate itself through its ethical plan. So we see that competitive and resilient organisations really are trying to integrate their CR principles. And they're going beyond business as usual and compliance. I'd like to drill into the 10-year trends in a little bit more, and I've picked up 4 trends to illustrate over that 10-year period. The first is the gap between strategy and action, and sections 1 and 2 of the index, which are strategy and integration, kind of look at the sophistication of the planning process. In 2002, strategy was rated at 81%, but really quite a big gap, a 20 percentage points gap to integration. And you can see on the slide, actually, that companies have got much, much better. And vision and policies are now linked much better to systems and programs, and that gap has closed dramatically. So the gap now is only 7 percentage points. So what people want to do and what they're actually managing to integrate into their management processes has improved a lot. Where would a presentation be these days without a comment about remuneration and bonus? And I think this is quite interesting because I see this as a leading indicator. I know we've got a lot of tough comments about remuneration and bonus these days. But if you look back to 2002, only 24% of companies had links to CR to people's remuneration and bonus, whereas today remuneration and bonus systems now include 73% of them have got linkages to CR performance. Board engagement has also improved an awful lot, and the governance of non-financial issues has really matured over the period of the 10 years of the index. The data point that we can get back to for this one is 2004, because we weren't asking this question in 2002. But in 2004, only 65% of companies regularly discussed CR issues at a main board level. But by 2002, this has risen to 92%. And you can see a commensurate improvement in the amount of training and investment that companies are making in their directors and non-executive directors so they can have meaningful discussions at board level. I mentioned a few slides back about reporting quality and the scope of the reporting quality, and that's increased considerably over the years. This question really captures performance data, progress against targets, and third-party data assurance. And overall, companies are doing much better, up from 31% in 2004 to 53% now. But as I mentioned, the marketplace is still a really tough issue for companies in terms of their reporting. So those are just 4 items from the last 10 years. What I want to do now is to look at what we've seen for this year's index compared with last year's index and see if that suggests any emerging trends. And I'm going to cover 3 emerging issues. The first is youth unemployment and education. And what's the sort of challenge here? What's the issue? Well, 1.5 million people are currently not in education, employment or training, and 1 in 5 of all young people, that's a quarter of a million, have been unemployed for over a year. And companies are really noticing this and putting it down as a key social impact issue they want to deal with in the issue. So it's cited more often than anything else in the 2012 index. 68% of company participants have reported that they're looking at that issue about business benefits and what's derived from their community investments, and the majority of those are focused on youth unemployment. The next area of emerging issues is corporate wellness and engagement. And again, what's the challenge here? Well, 10% of UK gross national product is lost every year due to stress. And we see that there's still a lack of understanding in the links between well-being initiatives and employee engagement, and that kind of inbuilt understanding that we all have that a happy, engaged workforce must be more productive. But that inbuilt understanding isn't translating into people's kind of causal link to their employee wellness activities. So just to pick out some numbers, 70% of the participants have completed the corporate wellness and engagement sector, which is 7% up on last year. But with a score of 58% across all the participants, it's still one of the lowest scoring areas. So an emerging trend, but not yet performing as well as we'd like it to. And the last issue I'd like to pick up on is sustainable supply chain. And again, what's the challenge here? Well, the challenge is pretty clear that if you're exposed to irresponsible business practice in your supply chain, that's going to severely damage your business reputation and your consumer trust. Evidence from the index shows that there's an increasing number of companies who are raising ethical sourcing and transparency issues across their supply chain. And companies are starting to commit themselves now to make their products traceable back to the source. But again, it lags a long way. And I think there's a link there directly to that issue on reporting that we mentioned, where if you look at marketplace, it's the area with the least performance in terms of third-party assurance and audit. This year, we've produced 4 special reports, and I'm not going to go through them in detail. On screen, you'll just see highlights of the key issues for 4 sectors that we've looked at. If you go to our online report, you can read 4 very detailed sector analysis, and from those reports, we've produced even further links back into case studies and further examples. So you can glance at the key issues on screen, but do look at our online report, which is here. It's one of the first 3 or 4 purely online reports that Business in the Community has written. The first was our annual report. And from our perspective, they're very interesting because as you read your way through this report, and as you click on bits of it, and as you hover over bits of it, the tracking system tells us which parts of our reporting you are most interested in. So we're really keen on that because it'll help us to improve the way we communicate and explain things to you in the future. So please do go and use the report. And in a month's time, we'll be poring over all the mouse hovers and clicks to find out which bits you read and which bits you stayed reading for the longest. That brings me to a short section now on some developments and updates. I'd like to pick out private benchmarking. We've been offering private benchmarking since 2005. 68 companies have gone through a private benchmark, some more than once. We've had 110 different submissions. What we provide is significantly enhanced assistance in completing the index and even more feedback. And it's a stepping stone, it's an accelerator. As you can see on the chart, companies who do a private benchmark move through the index faster than companies who try and do it all on their own. The other initiative we're just piloting now is a global portfolio benchmark, and this allows multinational companies to pitch business unit against business unit and see how they can compare. So if you like, it's almost an internal index, an internal benchmarking process. Legal & General have piloted with us. We're very thankful to them. And just highlighting on the screen some of the key benefits that we've seen with them, strengthening group governance, looking at regional risk, and facilitating better internal cooperation and training. So another of our novelties this year is global portfolio benchmarking. Now, those of you who've been out in the convention hall might have stopped by at our stand and had a look at the Responsible Business Checkup, which is very kindly sponsored by Santander. And you might say, well, what's the need? Well, the need for a quicker checkup process is that 34% of companies who complete the index say that they'd like to do more to encourage their suppliers to be more responsible businesses. So what is the Responsible Business Checkup? It's a gap analysis, it's a benchmarking tool, it's suitable for companies of all sizes. It's based on the same structure as the index, but it's quicker and easier to do. And we've had 96 organisations who started the survey, 74 have completed it, 80% say that they will take action to improve as a direct result. It's web-based, it's quick to do, around about 3 hours. The self-assessment, so you fill in the information all yourself. We give you practical feedback within 30 minutes. It's mechanised feedback. There's not someone waiting there to give you a 30-minute feedback. But you can do it at any time of the year, and you can do it as many times as you like. And the feedback is detailed. It's question by question benchmarking for your performance. And if you haven't found us already in the convention hall, do visit my colleagues Steve and Natasha, who've got some laptops. They've got a 12-question teaser. They've got some information on the table. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Steve back, and Steve's got some participants who I know are going to be sharing their experiences on the index. So I'm looking around for the boss. Here he is. Stephen, thank you.